We are fashionably late here on Fantasy NBA Today Live. We want to give everybody a chance to congregate, and I want to give Aaron Bruski a chance to get himself amped up with what I can only assume is the Fred Durst anthology.
I did it all for the nookie, Dan. The nookie, so I could get the cookie and stick it up your Stick it up your Yeah.
Were really a special time, weren't they?
Well, you know why? Because we were forced to listen to that. We didn't have choice in the matter. At least I didn't. I was going to school in San Luis Obispo. There was 2 radio stations. One was bad rock. The other was bad pop.
Oh, man, not a classic rock station to be found, huh?
The classic rock was pretty bad. It wasn't like Hendrix or The Doors or Pink Floyd or, you know, any of the real great classic rock acts. It was like Winger.
That's such a college town thing to do.
And they repeated them every 20 minutes, so you couldn't get away.
That is so college town. Just to do it just for the sake of doing it. Like, you do stuff when you're in college, you do stuff with the express goal of like trolling someone. Oh, sweet, I found a classic rock station.
But I will say this, the DJ at the pop station was pretty cool. He was actually our neighbor. And so he was the last person that I kind of knew and could watch him take the box of records from the trunk of his car into the house. And then when they would throw house parties, it would be these 300-person deals, where, but they were actually was, I know a lot of DJs still do the vinyl. But when you get to see somebody literally grab like 10 things of records because they're not sure which ones they're going to play, that takes you back to the old school.
That really does. I in my mind, I'm seeing John Cusack. Is that at all accurate?
No, not in this case. In fact, the exact opposite in every which way.
So Jack Black, the other character in that same film.
No, not even close.
Okay. All right. Well, it's Fantasy NBA Today. We are live on YouTube. It is Friday. You are also potentially listening to this later on the traditional podcast streams. But I would suggest that if you are one of those many people who listen to this show on your mobile device, on whatever it is, the podcast app or Google Play or Stitcher or TuneIn or whatever the different things are that you can find it on these days, come join us live on YouTube on Fridays. We're usually on anywhere between 10 and like 11:30. And Aaron Bruski and I will take your questions. He is, of course, the architect, el arquitecto, the creator of hoop-ball.com. I am Dan Besbris, your gracious host. You can find us both on Twitter. If you can spell our names, you can find us. And this is, of course, a hoop ball presentation. How you been, my man? How you been?
I'm great. I was a little bit worried about you, with all of the events going on in the world today, with the Dodgers losing. I was a little bit worried. And then the Lakers, losing to Dame Lillard and his dagger 3.
It was a good game, though, right? I mean, this was like the Brook Lopez, Yusuf Nurkic offensive dunk fest for 3 quarters. And then it was trading game winners effective, or was a game tire and then a game winner. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope hit a big shot, but they left 16 seconds on the clock. And, Lillard, that's a pretty good shot, man. That's like a 30-footer with a hand near his face.
It is a great shot. But the thing about this is really, from a defensive nerd standpoint, Lillard's going to the step back there. I was going to type it, and then I had a typo, and then I deleted it. And I'm like, all right, well, now I'm just like, it's to the point where my tweet's not going to happen fast enough. And then it's like, what the hell am I even doing this for anyway? But you knew the thing was coming. Yeah. So if you're a defender, I mean, you almost got to just chase him off the line.
Yeah, I agree. Especially
but he made a 30-foot step back, and it was great defense by Brandon Ingram. So I mean, you just can't really complain about that.
Yep, you tip your cap. Lakers actually, Lonzo Ball didn't look particularly good in that ball game, but I feel like the Lakers actually looked a little bit better And, we talked about it on the Lakers cast. They caught the Pistons on a quality, like too many days in California, too many wins over the top teams in the West. Oh, good. The Lakers, we can just walk through this one. And then the Pistons got shellacked. But some of those guys, and Brandon Ingram actually is the guy you just mentioned. He actually looks better on the basketball court. It's not translating to fantasy value yet, but he looks better.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I've always been a big Brandon Ingram fan, so I'm not going to hate on him too much. There's a couple jumpers that look broken in that game. So he's still coming along. He's just got to grow into that body. I think he's still kind of like a baby deer out there. That game actually put me to sleep in the first half. There
was no defense at all.
It was just I think it was actually the crowd, which normally in Portland is one of the things that you kind of tune in for. I don't know. They were really quiet up there for that first half, and then it picked up in the second half. So
maybe the crowd was watching their overtime loss in Utah the night before, and they were tired too.
It's possible. I don't know. I think if I had to guess, there's like backlash for the Lakers being the Thursday night game. That was what my guess was. I think it's with Kuzma doing his thing and Kuzma making a couple key shots. He was also one big shot away from getting a Kuzlash tweet from me, where I was going to tweet the picture of, I think his name's Jerry O'Connor from Jerry Maguire. The actor's name is Jerry O'Connor. Didn't you say you went to school with that dude?
No, I went to school with Chris Pine.
Oh,
yeah,
that guy. Well, no, Jerry O'Connor in Jerry Maguire. He goes Kushlash, Kushlash, Kushlash.
I don't think I went to school with that dude.
He go Kushlash.
It's like Jerry Maguire came out, what, mid-90s, late 90s? I was a teenager then.
It was an early 90s film. And I remember, I went and I saw that in the theaters when I was in a junior in high school.
I could not get in. Is Jerry Maguire R-rated or PG-13? I couldn't. When it came out, I was not 17, so I don't think I could have. I think I could have bought a ticket.
I think it was PG-13 because I think my girlfriend at the time, we took like her little sisters. But that also might have been the movie Kingpin.
Well,
I think that was a mistake in retrospect.
Yeah, don't take somebody's younger sisters to see Kingpin. They milk a bull in that movie, in case you've forgotten. Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about the Lakers here. This actually is a good segue to the first part of our Friday show, which has been
we're talking bull.
Yeah, we don't have any cows, but we do have a bull. I think this show's actually on Fridays has been going really well. The feedback has been super positive, so we're just going to keep doing it this way. It's a great movie. You guys got to go see it. Woody Harrelson at his absolute best, and the weird Quaid, just like that's the role he was. It's the part. You remember the Simpsons episode where Troy McClure, voiced by Phil Hartman, R.I.P., gets the part of Dr. Zaius in Planet of the Apes, and he says, "It's the part I was born to play, baby." The man. That's like Randy Quaid in this film. Okay, but sorry, enough Kingpin. Larry Nance broke his hand in yesterday's Laker game too, and he was on my list of the sort of hot topics that came up this week that either have been asked about on Twitter or the Hoopball forums. This is where I pull a lot of our questions for Friday. Clear winners would have to be, I assume, Kuzma, Randall. I mean, does anybody do enough on this team to step into a worthwhile role with Nance out?
Well, Randall, yeah. I mean, and Randall, I think, was somebody that you really shouldn't have been panicking on too much based on the first couple weeks of the season. I think that for whatever reason, I don't think the Lakers are trying to show him or teach him a lesson. Sometimes that's the case with these things. But his frustration and lack of playing time, I think, was going to end up getting resolved no matter what. But yeah, now this just thrusts him back into the big minutes that he's supposed to get. So the 30 minutes per game, I think, is coming his way. Now, Kuzma has put up some pretty light stat lines, and that makes me a little bit worried for his standalone value during this time, while Nance is out. So I don't know if I'm rushing out to get Kuzma, but Randall's definitely a must-own.
Next guy on my list, I'm just going to plow through this one by one. We don't need to go lightning round because the names, there's only like 8 or 9 names from this week. It's starting to peel off a little after the first week you got like 20 guys that everybody's asking about, and the second week you've got like 12 to 15, and now week 3 we're settling into that rhythm where there's like 5 to 10 stories per week that are really worth exploring. Philly is the next place we're taking this train, the city of brotherly love, and TJ McConnell. And not so much whether or not he's useful, because clearly he is useful. He looks great seeing 25 to 30 minutes as their sort of feature point guard with Markelle Fultz on the sidelines. My question for you, Brew, is what do we see with McConnell going forward? Like, has he now grabbed this role on the team even when Fultz comes back? Do we know if Fultz is coming back anytime soon? It's sort of a weird, nebulous little shoulder thing. My buddy Eli on the Lakers cast was suggesting that maybe there isn't an injury and they're just taking him out of this thing to rework his shot. So the tinfoil hat is out already. I mean, McConnell feels like a guy you got to just ride until the wheels fall off, but how long before that happens?
Yeah, Eli's got the right tinfoil hat on. I've had the tinfoil hat on all year. I think that there's too much weird stuff going on, and the agent really kind of locked this one in for me. When the agent comes out and tries to make the statements that he makes, and then there's pushback from the team and all of that, it just reeked of an agent trying to protect his client, and he just did a bad job of doing it. So, yeah, McConnell is going to have this role, I think, for the foreseeable future. Like, there might be times when it dips, but Jared Bayless has never been a healthy guy, and I also think that the 20 some odd minutes that McConnell gets is something that Brett Brown can plan for. He can find a way to get him minutes in the game, and I don't know if he even leaves the rotation. He might dip down to say something like 18, and that might hurt him if you're trying to use him as an active player and say a 12-team format for that little brief period in time. But I'm looking at him as a long-term asset.
What do you think the potential is for him rest of season? Top 100, top 90, top 115? Are we close?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me last year, but I think last year he was around a top 100 play because he didn't miss games and he just got after it. So, yeah, that's exactly where I would put him. Now, he has shot a little bit over his head lately. He's at 52%. Yeah.
I was going to say, and he's like 65% over the last week, too.
Well, he's 56% from 3. But again, though, keep in mind, that number's not going to matter that much. He's not taking a lot of threes. He's taking a lot of open threes. And so he could easily shoot a 40% clip this year, and it would look good on paper, but it's not really moving the needle. He's just a good player.
Yeah, he's not a bad shooter overall because largely he's a guy that for whatever reason, he's a point guard that takes most of his shots closer to the basket. The three-pointer thing this season so far is kind of new. I mean, he didn't really – he attempted 0.7 threes per game last year. He played in 81 of their 82 games and averaged 26 minutes a night. So he's legitimately averaging – less, about 1 3-pointer per 36 minutes. That is crazy low, and that's now up to about 1.5, 1.6. So that, I don't know, does that jump feel?
What's interesting is none of this almost doesn't matter. It's 6 shots a game. He could miss all of them, and it almost doesn't matter. The points are limited, would obviously hurt, but yeah, none of this matters. He's going to be just fine. And
by the way, last year. Overall, 46%.
Yeah, I mean, just the assists. And what I think, though, is a little bit telling is that you've seen these bigger games out of him. And playing with, like, a Ben Simmons, to be able to do that, largely last year when he was on the floor, it was his show. So there is a little concern that, Fultz is going to come back and take some touches away. But I'll just say this. Sometime in the season, you have to ignore what a player's draft status was. And, like Kyle Kuzma, again, redrafting, he probably goes something like top 10, top 7. I don't think you're supposed to look at him as a top 25 guy. With Fultz, we said this before the draft, during the draft, after the draft, and then during draft season for fantasy leagues. This was a small sample size up in Washington. They didn't do well. His free throw shooting was a tell that there might be a problem with shooting. There's a lot of reasons to think that that maybe he should be viewed like a top 15 pick in reality basketball. Who knows? He could snap out of it, come back, get back into a 27, 30-minute role. But even then, I think that the Sixers find a way to play TJ McConnell minutes. And it's a good segue into Richaun Holmes, because if you listen to Brett Brown talk about TJ McConnell, clearly he's sold. He's like, this is my guy. And with Richaun Holmes, the way he talked about him in the presser before, I think it was at practice yesterday morning, it's clear he gets it, that Richaun Holmes is a guy that they want on the court. Now, Amir Johnson is going to be the big question, I think, in the short term here, for fantasy owners, if we're evaluating whether or not there's an immediate payoff, like AKA tonight, Richaun Holmes gets in there 25 minutes and just puts up those Richaun Holmes numbers that we all know and love. That remains to be seen.
The other note on McConnell, by the way, before I move on to to Charlotte, is our next destination as we hip hop across the country. Since TJ McConnell moved into this bigger role, whether you want to call it starter or just starter level minutes, Philly's 3-1, and their only loss was 1 point. They lost to Houston 105-104. That does mean something for a team, right? I mean, they want to win some games this year.
Oh, they want to make the playoffs. There's a lot of pressure on the Colangelos, Brett Brown. This is a team that's trying to win. I don't see TJ McConnell again leaving the lineup. And before we I don't know if we're coming back to Richaun Holmes before we come back or before we leave Philly. I'm just going to say this: make room for him on your roster. Like people, there's a very smart post in our forums about, okay, is he going to play next to Joel Embiid or not? Because Amir Johnson appears to be the backup center, and then there you have Ben Simmons and Dario Saric, and it's like, okay, where's he going to play? It's the same exact thing with McConnell. This is a guy that the Sixers understand is better. I should say Brett Brown. Brett Brown understands is better than the other options and brings a different dynamic to the team that they don't have. So I think this will be one of these things where if Amir Johnson stays in the rotation and if those other power forwards are going to play their normal minutes, I think they slide Ben Simmons down to the 3 some. And then I think with Richaun Holmes, maybe they start him out at like 12, 14, then 16, then 18, then 20 minutes per game over the course of, say, his first 2 weeks back. That would be kind of how this all works out. So when he comes back, there might be some people that go, oh, no, it's not going to happen for him this year. I'm going to then drop him. And then there might be multiple times for people to pick up Richaun Holmes in the next couple weeks. But make no mistake, on this team, 20 minutes of Richaun Holmes is going to bring back top 100 value. And then the question's, how much higher can he go after that?
I mean, I'm satisfied having him on my bench and using him on back-to-backs when Embiid isn't playing. I mean, you could just use him for those like 12 games the rest of the year and get huge production as a fill-in spot. If that's all you want from him, he could go massive in those games. But let's turn our attention. We're going to float down the Eastern Seaboard to Charlotte, where coming into the season, I basically said flat out, I don't trust any of these guys that relied on rebounding for their fantasy value now that Dwight Howard is in town. After 2.5 weeks, guys are starting to figure out a little bit where they belong, how they can get a rebound next to Dwight. And we're also seeing these sort of intermittent pop-ups from Malik Monk, who had himself a big ball game in their last one. And every time he goes big, there are 50,000 questions about him. So two guys on Charlotte that I want to cover, or two things maybe more than guys. Let's talk about the rebounding thing first. Marvin Williams and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, two guys on that club last year that found their way to fantasy value in at least some part, not really a small part either, because they were able to rebound well. I mean, Marvin Williams had a really rough start to the season last year, and then he came on huge in the second half. He had some games where he was like 25 and 15. You're going, is this another M. Williams on my Yahoo? Who is this person? He started to play a little bit better over the last week. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist can't quite get healthy. He's basically being dropped in almost every league where people drafted him. Is there any path to consistency for these forwards in Charlotte so long as Dwight Howard is healthy? Like, can Marvin Williams actually be a good 9-cat guy? Can Michael Kidd-Gilchrist do his defense and rebounding even if Dwight Howard is on the floor?
I don't think so. Here's why. Because rebounding rates are one of the more consistent stats that we have available to us. Now, I did notice the same thing with Marvin Williams. His numbers were way down. I mean, I forget what his average was for the first couple of weeks. I think it was like 3 rebounds a game, something really low. And you looked at it, you said, maybe he's hurt. And to have the sudden burst this last week where he's back up to like 6, 7, or 8, that was noteworthy, and it's something I paid attention to. But over the long haul with Dwight, and now you got Cody Zeller back, these are two guys that rebound their position. And so I don't know if we're counting on rebounds as the metric that would be what I would use to put them back into a conversation of being a good fantasy asset. With Marvin Williams, I think in 9-cat leagues, well, both of them really in 9-cat leagues, I think that they do get that bump. But I'm not optimistic about either guy. And part of it comes down to, Malik Monk is probably going to earn, say, up to 20 minutes per game. But Jeremy Lamb has really gotten the experience necessary to take on 25 minutes per game, I think, for this squad. So now you're getting a little bit of pressure on both of those guys. Frank Kaminsky is going to probably get more minutes this year than he's gotten in previous years. I just think they're going to get squeezed out.
Yeah, that was my fear as well. That was it actually for Charlotte. So that one didn't take too long. I don't want to go all the way west just yet. How about the let's go back up the Eastern Seaboard, and we're gonna briefly mention that on last Friday's show we played a little game of Talk Me Off the Ledge, and Tim Hardaway Jr. immediately came out and blew up right afterwards. So I think everybody's effectively calm on that front. New York, they got bludgeoned by Houston in their last ball game, but in a weird twist, they've actually been better with Jarrett Jack as their starting point guard. Last Friday, we talked about how Ramon Sessions was a terrible option at point guard for that team, and this is a pretty clear indicator that almost like a snowman you could have thrown in the middle of the court and called it a point guard, and that might have made the team better because Jarrett Jack is back from the dead. He had a slow game against Houston, but he had 19 assists in his previous 2 games, just setting people up, giving the ball to the guy who was making buckets. Is there any future for Jarrett Jack on a fantasy roster if he holds on to the starting point guard job there?
I think so. I don't think it's going to be much more than very late round value. I'm shocked he can stand, to be honest. Whatever procedure he has had done to get him back on the court is nothing short of a miracle. This ride could end at any time. But yeah, I mean, anybody who's watched Ramon Sessions play in Sacramento even, and he hasn't been better since then, it was like watching somebody who'd forgotten how to play basketball. So how the Knicks were going to make that work, I have no idea. But Jack, and I'll say this, Ntilikina is somebody that should be on your radar. He's getting steals and he's shooting threes, and he also has a little bit of a popcorny line. So it's not there yet, and he's got his own little knee concern that makes things a little bit odd. But don't discount him from making noise this season. And I don't know where I think maybe in like a 14-team league I'd consider stashing him depending on my needs. But yeah, that's interesting, and with especially with Jarrett Jack being, susceptible to injury at any time.
Yeah, that's a kind way to put it. Quick one in Orlando. They are now down to their third string point guard. Is Shelvin Mack someone that you'd consider streaming for a week or two until Elfrid Payton comes back?
I think Payton is close. So I think you're looking at this on a game-by-game basis. I think that the fact that Payton can't play tonight is a little bit revelatory, or revelatory, as I make things up.
Well, definitely those concussions again.
Yeah, I know. So I think that's a little bit interesting just because, the Magic are winning. They want to get, they want to keep this momentum going. They want Payton on the court. This isn't a situation where it's like, oh, we want to really just play it safe. There's nothing to play for. Why ruin our guy's leg? I think they'd want to get him out there. And so maybe there is a second game. Maybe there is a third game. But yeah, definitely tonight, I will go 16 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, and steal in 2 threes for Mr. Mack.
Not a bad little streaming number there. Okay, let's turn our attention now to the Midwest, and Chicago is our first stop there. The Jaren Grant, Chris Dunn point guard battle is now a thing. Last week, I don't think it was quite a thing yet. They actually both managed to do, I'm going to say, okay in that last ball game, which is something considering they just got walloped. And that's going to be happening a lot to this team. They're a bad basketball team in Chicago. Either of those guys of interest to you?
Yeah, Dunn is. I think, Grant doesn't really have a lot of fancy appeal. I think we've seen his stats set. It's only working with 30 minutes per game and a lot of injuries around him. Even then, it's barely working. So he's sort of off the list. But Dunn. And anytime Dunn does something good, you feel the beat writers in Chicago get really excited. They feel like this is the guy that's the future. That typically means that the organization is behind the guy as well. And for good reason. I mean, this is a lottery pick that, was a centerpiece of a big trade that they made. And so I think with Dunn, the hope there is that he can win a 30-minute role, provide the defensive numbers, the assists, some boards, but, maybe just not shoot the ball. Would probably be the best case scenario there for him, and still providing that other stuff. I think you could get a late round point guard out of this situation and have a hint of upside beyond that if for whatever reason something clicks.
And our weekly Nico update. It sounds like he rode a stationary bike, still no contact because the face needs to continue to set. But it also doesn't sound like he wants to play if Bobby Portis is still there. Mirotic can't be traded until January. If you're Foreman / whoever is running that joint, what do you do? Who do you get rid of, if anyone?
This is one of these things. Okay, so the news reports came out, I want to say yesterday, and emailing back and forth with our friend of the show who had given the advice to on Dinwiddie. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this Mirotic thing is definitely a problem. And it's a problem for me because it's been, 8, 9, 10 of my rosters and sitting here trying to figure out what to do with this situation that just landed on my lap for no damn good reason. And so the timeline got extended by Hoiberg and the reporting on this, and they said that basically the 4 to 6 weeks started now. And so that added 2 to 3 weeks to this thing. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, that's a problem. And then we have this question of, does he want to play? Do the Bulls even want him? The way the Bulls sound to me is like they like him, they want him around, but they don't want a prima donna, and they don't want somebody that's, may have helped cause this fight, kind of dictating how they go about their business. And that is not good for his fantasy value. So that was yesterday. Now, the fact that he's just exited the concussion protocol is a really big deal. Like, he's still not, on the court doing, full contact or, partial contact even, activities due to his face. But eventually that's not going to be a problem. Eventually he'll be able to get his cardio up. he'll practice with guys, and then they'll internally say, okay, nobody hit this guy, go easy on Nico. And he'll get into these, 3-on-3s and the 4-on-4s and the 5-on-5s. And then eventually I think he'll come back. I think that this is one of these things where they're saying worst case scenario type stuff to provide as much of a bubble and as much space around this incident as possible. So if he does freak out, if he does say, I'm not playing with the dude anymore, they got a little bit more time to try to figure out how to handle it. So I think that original timeline might be in play. Why this long, rambly sort of response? This is a big deal. Like, this guy plays for a team that's bad. He could come in, get 30 minutes per game, and be a top 75 type guy with a little upside beyond that if everything works out, say. And it does help a little bit that Markkanen's been good, because they'll take pressure off of him to be this all-encompassing scorer where his efficiency goes down. He might gain a little efficiency out of it. And in this role, now you're sitting there holding a top 75 guy. And that's the type of potential that you would keep on your bench in this type of a situation. So in my 14-team leagues or 12-teamers that play like 14-teamers, I'm still holding him. I don't have to make my decision for a couple days. I think that there are people that it does probably make sense to move for a hotter free agent. So I guess he's not a must-own player in that regard in more shallow 12-team leagues. But the fact he exited the concussion protocol to me is like a wait-and-see type moment where I want to see what the next bit of news is, because I think the news cycle could change on him.
Yeah, it's been fluctuating. It went from he's going to Europe to he's on a stationary bike to he says Bobby Portis has to go to he's excited to play basketball at some point. And then
think about it. Have you ever punched a friend?
I have not, actually.
Okay. I have punched a friend, and I've been punched by a friend. And there's a period, and there's a lot more money and, stuff on the line here. But it's a pretty simple cycle. It's you're mad, then you're not mad. They're in the mad period right now. And this could easily get to the their best friends period, shortly after it. We'll see. I don't know if they'll ever be best friends again, but that's the way this kind of thing goes.
Maybe Robert will pick up the medical tab. That'd be nice.
Exactly.
Hey, last name on Chicago before we move on, and I realized that these are some pretty loaded stories. Maybe this one's a little less. David Nwaba, starting wing on this team, went for 4 points, 11 rebounds, a steal, 2 blocks, did not turn the ball over, does not shoot the 3 ball. But if he's playing 30 minutes a night on this awful, awful team, and he's like this maximum hustle guy, he's a guy I put on my little watch list. I clicked that little star next to his name on Yahoo. I mean, if he continues to start, he's somebody that you kind of have to look at, right?
Been a big Nwaba fan since he was in LA. These guys that have the athleticism, that are late bloomers, they find ways to get it done. Think Jonathan Simmons, think, a little bit of Danny Green, back when he was with Cleveland. I'm in favor, like in those deeper 14-team or 12-team leagues that play like 14-teamers. He's on my watch lists, and he will be somebody that if I have dead weight and I want to just take a flyer, I think he'll be on that. Now, there's going to be some problems as guys get healthy, and I think that's the main detractor here. But this team could easily get thinner, real quick. It just takes one injury, and now they're back to where they would need a guy like that on the floor.
All right, watch list time. All right, this weekly Gorgie time on the pod. He played more in a game. Karl Anthony Towns got himself into foul trouble, and Jang did sort of the normal Gorgie line when he plays 25 minutes. Reason for optimism, or just taking advantage of the fact that Towns couldn't keep his hands off of people?
I wrote in my Bruski breakdown on Tuesday that here where I discuss why I'm going to hold Gorgie Jang no matter what for the next week. And also, I don't care what he does this week. So I can't play both sides of it. If he had gone for 11 minutes, I wouldn't have cared. And even in this big line or bigger line, I'm not going to care there either. Reason being is I feel like we're in Doc used to write this column, the 7 stages of Tyrese Thomas, which is a little bit different since Tyrese Thomas was always so inconsistent, and Gorgie's pretty consistent. But a couple things have to happen here, and one of them did happen. One is somebody in the local media has to notice that he's not playing, and that could take forever. In Sacramento, could take a year. Like it just happened to in Minnesota. Jerry Zagota, probably the biggest beat writer there, wrote about Gorgie not playing. That's step one. And then step two is Minnesota kind of has to get exposed for why that's stupid. Namely, Nemanja Bjelica shouldn't be playing. And right now he is playing, and it's early in the year. You kind of want to see what you have in the guy, I think, if you're Tibbs. And they have trouble spacing. So, Bjelica can come in. And a quick funny aside is there was this play a couple of games back where Jeng got the ball at the end of the quarter, and Bjelica was running up to the three-point line trying to get a shot off, get open for a three, and it just wasn't going to happen. It was too bang. Gorgie kind of did like 5 pivots and flung something up, and it went in. And the look of disgust on Nemanja Bjelica's face was hilarious. He was not happy at all that his teammate had made the shot. He was like, screw this dude. I'm in a position battle, and we don't like each other. That was classic. But that's what's going on here. So when Nemanja gets kicked out of the rotation, that's going to add another 12 minutes, to Gorgie. That's one way for him to get his value. But I think that the 3 stages are: 1, somebody writes about it; 2, then it gets exposed for how dumb it's going to be; and then 3, he starts getting the minutes. Is this all going to happen in time for owners to be able to hang on? I don't know, but I was waiting through this week anyway, and I thought that was a pretty good sign. And also just a sign and a reminder that, yeah, he can do this. I don't think he's taken to the bench, the 11-minute role all that well. I think he's pissed off. I don't think he's in a rhythm. He doesn't look good out there as far as his body language.
Who would? Hey, I got a suggestion for Bjelica and Jeng if they want to try to sort this position battle quickly. Bobby Portis is on speed dial, man. Just
wait. Are you advocating a Tanya Harding style hit?
Nah, man. Mediation. Just get the whole thing mediated. All right. George Hill is a name that's come up a ton. We're going left coast now. I am avoiding all Sacramento Kings players. I didn't draft a single one in any of my leagues. That team is fully radioactive to me, and I feel great that I don't have any of them. But I also want to try to help the people that keep asking me about them. And so to do that, I'm going to instead ask you about them, because I can't figure it out. I don't know who's going to play every night in Sacramento. And I thought, you know what? If I don't know who's going to play, possibly they don't know who's going to play. And so I don't want these guys on my fantasy team. But the upside on George Hill is so big. How can you drop him?
Yeah, and here's the funny thing is, like, it's so classic Sacramento that nobody really knows what's going on. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but there was an article by Zach Lowe, close but a little bit off target. He talked about how the Kings are relying on Zach Randolph for late possession post play. That's not what's happening. And then there was a comment about George Hill, which is like, he's either hurt or disgruntled, because it's not all about Dave Yeager running the high post and moving the ball away from him. And I thought that could be partially true. I thought that the game off might signify that he is dealing with some sort of an injury that's not being disclosed. And I also have wondered, is he not thrilled that this offense is really bad? It's not. It's worse than I thought it could get.
Terrible.
They're running the ball through Willie Cauley-Stein, who for his part is playing okay offensively. And they're running this high post action that doesn't really take advantage of anybody's strengths, and it doesn't do anything to put the defense on its heels. George Hill doesn't get the ball in that offense. And if I'm George Hill, I'm not thrilled about that. I'm getting paid $19 million a year. People are pissed. They think it's me that's not performing. And they're basically saying he's not being aggressive enough, when it's hard to be aggressive if the only times that you get to be aggressive are with a defense that's in a very good position to defend you. So you almost have to make kind of kamikaze style basketball plays to get aggressive into that type of an offense. So I think the devil's in the details here. So outside observers, I don't think they watch enough Kings basketball or know enough about what's going on with Kings basketball to really have a good assessment of what's going on. You're going to get a lot of noise with this stuff. And I don't know that things are going to change. I mean, it took Sacramento an entire year to know, and they didn't even really know it, that Rajon Rondo wasn't playing good basketball. It took them a year. Well, actually, they never figured it out to figure out that DeMarcus got.
I think we may have just lost Bruski for a moment there. We'll try to get that sorted out temporarily. Technical difficulties. He froze in a particularly flattering place, too. I'm going to take a moment on the podcast here to actually text Aaron to see if his computer went down, so you guys can enjoy looking behind the fourth wall on that one. Oh, and there he's back.
I have no idea what happened. Where did we lose me?
I was so busy trying to.
How many seconds ago?
I forget exactly what was being said at the moment you freaked out. Perhaps the chat room can clear that one up. What were we talking about?
Basically, George Hill's going to be crappy until they figure it out in Sacramento, and I think it's within their power, but I don't know that they're going to do it. They don't have a strong front office to jump in and say, "Hey, this clearly isn't working. Don't wait until game 82 to figure it out." If they figure it out, George Hill can be a fine fantasy. He can be a top 50 guy. I think he's somebody you want to stash and just see how it plays out for the next 2 to 3 weeks. It could get ugly. Maybe your team is full of injured dudes and you've got to make a move. But I think too much money is on the line. You know, $19 million for a guy that's pretty relatively young. He's not young, but he wants his next deal to go well. His agents want his next deal to go well. The Kings want to be able to trade him for something, not nothing. You know, and it's kind of rotting their team from the inside out. So they got to do something here. I think something's got to give.
Something is different than nothing. That's something that I've learned over the years. It's not nothing that I learned over the years. All right, last team to talk about, and then we're going lightning round through the chat room. The Phoenix Suns. It almost seems like every single spot on the floor has become I know that Jay Triano was saying that he wanted to go to a more traditional lineup, but apparently what he meant by that was he wants a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5 on the court together at any point. But it's not going. He didn't necessarily illuminate which of the guys on his team he wanted to take the lion's share of the minutes. Outside of Devin Booker. Clearly, he's the guy at shooting guard. He's going to play most of the minutes there. TJ Warren's gone big a couple of games in a row, so he's sort of pushed Josh Jackson to the edge. Marquise Chris has been alternating good and bad games where Dragan Bender is seeing 20 to 25 minutes, and they're kind of pushing each other for playing time. I thought when this switch happened, you saw Tyson Chandler actually play most of the minutes at center. He got himself into foul trouble for 3 games in a row. He had 5, 6, and 5 fouls in 3 consecutive games. I thought, well, maybe they are actually just trying to play him 22, 23 minutes a night. Chandler played 30 plus. And then there's the Mike James, Tyler Ulis thing going on. Right now, looking at this team, just a quick glance, the 2 guys to me that look like they have sort of won their position battles are Devin Booker and TJ Warren. Is there anything else to take away from this team in terms of who has the clear path to 28 minutes and who's just stuck? It's going to be 24. It's going to be between 22 and 26 every night, depending on how well they're playing.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck. They're having that dead coach bounce. And so this could all, spiral out of control again. This organization is a joke, and that's going to continue to happen, long term. So what happens if they spin out of control? I think the chance that certain guys get traded away, I don't know who would be, kind of the top candidate for that other than Tyson Chandler. But, basically it would be a move by McDonough, to make something happen. Now you worry about what do they bring back in a deal. Also, are they able to make a deal? Like, McDonough's job is on the line and he's waiting for some sort of savior deal, and it's not going to come. And so that's going to linger. That timeshare at point guard. Here's a mistake that I can already log. And one of these things that I'll be pissed off about is not knowing Mike James was good. that it's harder in these small markets to keep up with that kind of stuff, but he's clearly good enough to play, and they're not going to move these guys into a 2-point guard lineup. It doesn't seem. So that's problem number one. I think for guys like Tyler Ulis, for Mike James himself, they're going to seesaw in terms of their value, and neither guy, I don't think Mike James profiles as an injury risk. So there's no real way out of that. TJ Warren's good. I think he's good to go this year. I am buying stock in both Marquise Chris and Dragon Bender. Bender looks like the game is getting easier for him, and he has that money counting stat profile, I think, where something could happen there. And we're keying in on the Tyson Chandler thing. Tyson Chandler is getting to Kendrick Perkins levels of play. He's not there yet. He's not probably close, but it could be coming. They got it. Once they pull him out of the equation, now you're looking at good opportunity for both of the two aforementioned young players as well as Alex Len. That's when I think things are going to clear up for Phoenix is you get that Tyson Chandler out of the lineup, and then I think they could even run a little bit more. You might then get the value out of the point guard position that you're looking for.
Yeah, it sounds like right now, basically, you're sort of just keeping a really close watch. I've been assigning homework on a lot of these podcasts, and it is watch these games as they happen, because if on one night, it's the night where Triano's like, all right, old goats, you're done, you want to be ready to make that move before the next morning. So that's why you watch these games, in addition to...
Also, keep in mind, Alex Len's not a healthy guy. So say they trade... And I don't know who's going to want to trade for Chandler. I think they've got to almost just say, we're sitting you. But say that Chandler gets hurt. Say Alex Len gets hurt. Now you got this really small lineup with a lot of minutes that have been freed up. And then I think the Suns get really interesting because then they become the Brooklyn Nets.
Hey, maybe that nursing home in Cleveland, they call it the Q. Maybe they could feed Tyson Chandler some soup or something. Man, that team is old. All right, let's go to the chat room. Let's take some questions. We're going to knock them out real quick. We are going to try to refrain from explanations on things, but obviously that won't be the case on all the questions. First question that came up was, what do you think about league vetoes? We talked about this last year. Let's do it again. It's a once-per-year tradition. Mr. Bruski, your very concise thoughts on league vetoes of trades.
Screw them.
All right. It is a tradition here at the Hoop.
I was going to swear I hate those things. I think it's anti-American.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Sometimes terrible things happen. It's a vote, but it's anti-American.
Well, it's a weird time right now. Next question, actually, I'm scrolling through here, so apologies if I don't say hi to everybody. Faisal got in sort of a rapid-fire list of names. Are you holding Hernan Gomez, excuse me? Is he a hold or a drop?
Oh, why didn't you? This is the lightning round. Short answer, I don't think he's a must-own player. I'm trying to hold him. I feel like this media cycle is very revelatory, and
nice, very good.
The fact is that's Porzingis' buddy, and Porzingis' brother's talking mad trash to the Knicks right now. My thought is there's more than what's going on, or more behind the scenes than we know, and it wouldn't be surprising if, Kyle Quinn gets traded or something happens. Willie Hernan Gomez plays 25 minutes within, say, the next month.
Jermichael Green, is he a pickup and stash guy?
Sure. He's a top 100 guy.
Greg Monroe, is he ever getting back to his 22 to 25 minutes that we liked over the last... I mean, we didn't like it. Obviously, we wanted him closer to 30, but it seems like he's kind of mired around 18 this year, and he's hurt.
I'm going to go yes, but it's going to take like a month from now.
Any interest in Jeremy Grant out in Oklahoma City?
Nah.
The problem with the lightning round is it's really hard for me to get to the next question while you're answering the previous one. Tell me more.
You're telling me to elaborate now.
Yeah, elaborate on your distaste for Jeremy Grant while I find the next question.
Not enough minutes per se on a consistent basis every night. If he could ever get a jump shot, then wow, that would be something.
Appreciate that. I got to the next question. Greg Monroe versus guys like Scal or De'Aaron Fox.
Oh, yeah, easily Scal and De'Aaron Fox. Both those guys are most down in 12 team.
Awesome. Let's see. We got some notes in the chat room here about Rashawn Holmes. We covered that in great detail earlier in the show. Nico comes up. See, this is why I do this part at the beginning, because I know what you guys are going to ask about. I mean, I don't know exactly what you're going to ask about, but I got a pretty good idea. Markeith Morris brothers questions. They are both due to make their season debuts tonight. Anoche. Markeith has historically been the one to put up better fantasy lines. He's only supposed to play 15 minutes in his return. Was it groin or hernia? Something like that. But, I mean, is there any reason to think that he won't eventually ramp up to what he did last year? He's got basically the same role on this team.
I think he has a top 75 type potential. Definitely a must-known player. Marcus, not so much. The big question for Marcus, and here's some good advice for you guys. Jason Tatum, you got to sell high, folks. It's fun to have the rookie that you're like, oh, man, he's kind of like a little Giannis in a weird way. No, that's, there's a lot of numbers are coming back, and then Morris is going to put a tiny little dent in him, and then if he ever gets, defenses catch up to him, the rookie wall, there's a number of things that happen to rookies. Like, he's been at a top 50 or better even level. He could easily drop down to top 100. It wouldn't shock me.
I got yelled at for saying that on a podcast last week. I'm glad you make me feel better about myself sometimes.
And it's a big buzzy name. Like, you could get, I think, like a top 50 guy in return in some situations. So you got to do it.
Yeah, the thing is, what I want to make clear is that we're not saying we don't like Jason Tatum. He's played really well, but this is probably as good as it gets. That's what a sell high is. You take something that's at its apex, you get an equal value for it when it's at its apex before whatever dip it might be. It might not be massive, but it'll be something. So that's where we sit with that one. Chung saying, Kelly Olynyk now with Whiteside back. Does that change your outlook at all?
He threw up a 9-minute outing. I think that freaked a lot of people out. It doesn't change my outlook at all.
5 fouls, 9 minutes. That was a good one, Kelly.
Yeah, it's no, it doesn't worry me at all. They don't have like the preponderance of excess players, especially up front. I do like Adebayo. I think he will get some minutes, but I think the worst case scenario for Olynyk this year would be 22 minutes per game, which puts him at top 125 value. And I do think he's going to get more. I think he'll probably play. If I have to go over under on his minutes today, I'd say it's 25 he gets this year. So that would put him in the top 80, I think.
Darren Collison, rest of season outlook. What range do you see him finishing at this year?
I think he'll be a top 85 player.
That seems pretty reasonable. Justin Holiday has been epically bad at shooting the basketball so far this year. He is sub Marcus Smart bad. Any reason to keep trotting him out there while he's just tanking roto teams right now?
Oh yeah, because what goes down must come up. It's gonna happen, and that's you're gonna like, if you chase the bad numbers, so to speak, you're gonna hate it when he replies with like a 48% shooting night on high volume, and it's like 28 points, 6 threes, and then all of the the 1 steal, the 1 block, the 4 rebounds, the 4 assists, and everybody's like, "Whoa, this is crazy! Did you see what Justin Holiday did?"
When do we think Kawhi's coming back?
Great question. I'm going to go so I'll say 17 days from now is my updated revised guess.
That is the greatest lightning round answer.
It's going to happen, man.
17 days. You guys mark it down. That's November the 20th.
And I don't like that. That's not good for me. I think it could happen at any time, but if I have to guess, just reading the tea leaves, 17 days from now. 17
days. Draymond Green versus Blake Griffin in a head-to-head format.
Not a question. It's Draymond, and sell high on Blake Griffin while people don't understand what's going on.
I think, and now I'm scrolling again, there was a nice long discussion in the chat room here, which is awesome, by the way. So guys kind of answering each other's questions, which you can also do in the Hoopball forums. Go to hoop-ball.com, click on the forums tab. And Bruski, while I find the next question, Dan Isn't Hoopball doing something with DraftKings?
Yes. Just hit my email. There is a promo tonight. Reading the copy from the desk, straight from the corporate offices of DraftKings. Tonight, join the Hoopball DraftKings promo contest for free. Tonight, as a new user with your first deposit, and win up to $10,000, I believe is tonight's prize.
What?
$10,000.
I was scrolling through the chat room, but you brought me back with that one. How does somebody get the free season pass? How do they do this so they can make sure they get credit for it?
Okay, so the smart way to do this is we have a promo on our page. You just go to premium or more premium, one or the other. And the very first item on the menu is DraftKings promo. So this gets you the premium membership from Hoopball for free, and you're going to get the free entry into this contest. Now, this is going to go out through all the different channels, and it might not include the language on the premium membership. Why? Twitter's only 140 characters. You know, you only do so much. What I'll say is just do the other promo. Either promo is fine. And some people might enjoy the other promo just because they're already DraftKings users. And you have to be a new DraftKings user to get the free premium membership. But either way, you'll see the tweets for the contest later. It looks like this is a go for tonight. If you don't have the premium membership, a $5 deposit gets you the premium membership, which usually runs for $29.99. So that, and if you're already a premium member, you can, if you follow the promotion, you're a new user, you get a refund if you had previously paid for the premium membership. And a lot of guys are out there doing that. We felt it was unfair if we didn't go retroactively back and hook you guys up as well. So that's what's up with DraftKings.
Sweet. Where do you see LaMarcus Aldridge finishing this year?
In pain.
Lower than where he is now.
Yeah. I mean, he's an obvious sell high because everybody knows when Kawhi's coming back, you know, all hell's going to break loose for LaMarcus Aldridge. You know, I'll give LaMarcus Aldridge this. When he is beneath a certain weight threshold, he's like old LaMarcus Aldridge. When he goes over that threshold and he can't run or walk or do anything effective, he becomes the LaMarcus Aldridge we saw in the playoffs. So far, he looks like the former. Sell high, by all means. I worry about his ability to stay in that level of shape all season long.
Pick one of the following players for the rest of the year. There are 4 names. You get to pick one. Frank Ntilikina, Dario Saric, Wilson Chandler, Nico Mirotic. Rest of season, you get one.
Mirotic.
Well, that makes me feel good. You think how many games do you think Joel Embiid plays this year?
67.
I love these lightning round questions. These are so much fun. When do you think Rajon Rondo comes back?
23 days.
I'm having so much fun right now. Oh,
you know I'm going to get this right, Dan. I got the podcast listenership number right.
That is true. We're actually.
I'm the guy that if you have a contest to guess the jelly beans in the glass jar, I'm going to get it right.
Bruce, your guy. T.J. Warren, Damari Carroll, Marcus Smart, Trevor Ariza. How would we rank those guys? I'll give you the names one more time.
No. I got Ariza, Warren, Carroll, and Smart.
Okay. That's kind of what I figured as well. I think I may have shot past a question. I was trying to go so fast. Here we go. Someone is activating Miles Turner, needs to drop either Ariza or Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. Who's your drop?
I mean, if this is a 9 or an 8 cat format, it's going to be drop Rondae Hollis-Jefferson in the shallow league.
9 cat, 10 team. It is indeed a shallow league. So you got that right as well. Should I drop Nerlens Noel or will this get better? NBA
can't get any worse.
Yeah, NBA had a platform a couple years ago called It Gets Better. I think that was about the LGBTQ community. Can we apply that to Nerlens' season outlook?
Yeah. So, you know, it feels like the steals and blocks are down, but looking at it a second time, at least 3 days ago, he's not in that. I don't think that's the issue. This is purely a minutes thing, though. I've seen too many double zeros to feel confident that he hasn't like turned a page. And this is an interesting thing. If he is going for less steals and blocks and that pleases Rick Carlisle, that could just kind of be this sort of wash where he gets more minutes, but it's not quite as good for fantasy owners. But he's at a top 125 value, and he's at, I think, his worst that he can be. So that even in a 10-team league plays well. So I just think you got to hang on. Buying low, I wouldn't assign like top 50 value to his future. So you might pick him up off a wire. I mean, so you could probably offer a late rounder, like a Jordan Clarkson type person, to just see what happens. Yeah, and then if things start to click, I mean, Dallas has won one game, I believe, and you know, I don't know that that'll change the way that they play Dirk, but they will force themselves to really look in the mirror and say, "Are we going young?" If this thing keeps up the way that it is.
Yeah, it's been ugly so far. All right, sides of a trade. Which side are you taking in this one? Side one, Anthony Davis and Smokin' Joe Ingles. It's a pretty good side of a trade. Side two, Draymond Green and Marc Gasol.
Oh man, how far has Smokin' Joe come up to get this type of a question? So it was Gasol and who?
And Dre.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a pair of second and third rounders there. And Anthony Davis, and I really do think that Smokin' Joe is going to stay inside the top 50. And I think he's got higher upside. He's got to stay healthy, not really, experience any sort of weird setback in his play. I mean, he's just rock solid right now. And I'm thrilled with Smokin' Joe. Too much risk on the Anthony Davis side for injury and decreased statistics. I think that things are going to get tight in New Orleans. I'm going to take the Marc Gasol side. Too safe.
Al Horford and James Johnson is one side of the following trade. Trevor Ariza and Thad Young are the other. I mean, I think you got to go the Horford side, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I think with Trevor Ariza, even in a 9-cat league, you're looking at like top 50 value with that. I know you're much higher on him than I am, and I think he's going to have to compile his way to get into that top 50, 60 kind of discussion. That's not getting quite as high as you would need, I think, to pull the trigger on that deal.
Yeah, and Horford's been so damn good so far this year, and there's sort of no reason to think he won't be, especially with Gordon Hayward down for the season. Al Horford can just plug along doing basically everything in a 9-cat format. I'm so thrilled that he fell to me in one league. That's the guy that I look at in this league and think, man, how did he get back to me? What a lucky man I am. And that's why days like Wednesday and Thursday happen to me. It's to counterbalance when I end up with Al Horford. My last question for you, Brew, is, did you see I got told to stick to sports, and it was awesome. That was that moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm a media personality now.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's happened to you.
Sorry. Times. If we ever start restricting people for what they say, especially in light of the current really atrocities that are going on out there, this is something we don't do here. We don't tell our people to shut up. ESPN should be ashamed of themselves.
There you go. I was actually pretty happy about the whole thing because it was in that moment that I thought, oh, I'm important now. I'm not. But somebody thought I was important enough to tell me to stick to fantasy basketball. And my reply was like, I have a degree in molecular biology, right? Why are you following me about basketball?
Stick to molecular biology.
That's what I was going to say. I'll run an assay on that shiz. You son of a gun. I'm going to run an assay. I'm going to run an ELISA.
First time I've heard assay used in a, I mean, you should really put that into some sort of like beef rap is where I thought that was heading.
I'm going to bleep the first half of that word. People are going to have to try to figure out what it was. I'll run an ELISA on that assay. He's Aaron Bruski. I'm Dan Besbris. We are pretty happy that there's a weekend coming. I am, at least. I'm zonked, man.
Oh, yes.
What you doing this weekend? That's my last question for you.
things have slowed down a little bit. It's a little bit of a catch-up weekend, so mostly just getting ready for a lot of the stuff that this development team that we've got over here has presented me with some stuff that I almost don't even want to hint about because it's so cool that I'm like, if I say it's gonna come, I don't want to jinx it. It's like on its way. I love it, and you guys will love it too. But we got to make sure that the ones and zeros line up. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing. Looking that stuff over. Trying not to get too excited about it.
I will be sacrificing chickens and goats to try to get the kid to sleep through the night again. Oh, it was so great that time.
Lesson 1, kids, don't get old.
Yeah, it's rough, man. He's Aaron Bruski. I'm Dan Besbris at those names. If you want to follow us on Twitter, go check out the DraftKings promo. Head to our forums, rate and review the pod, do all that fun stuff that we ask of you on each and every one of the shows. Is Fantasy NBA Today, a hoopball presentation. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Talk to you on Monday.